Yesterday, I had a very terrifying experience with an associate of a former friend. My mother was in Atlantic City, and my father and brother were at a hockey game. This left me at home alone with my dog. Everything was pretty normal until about 6 p.m. or 6:30. At that point, I had received the first message. This guy messaged me on Instagram claiming I had insulted him. I tried to explain that I had no idea who he even was, and then I got the message.
"I'm gonna find you."
That kinda creeped me out, but I thought he was bluffing. I said, "Sure you are." I then got another message saying to keep a look outside my door for the next hour. So just to debunk the fact that he was actually coming, I asked him, "Fine, what's my address then?" He then gave me my address and described my house and backyard perfectly. I dropped my phone and ran to my neighbor's house. I stayed there until my brother and dad arrived. I went inside and checked my phone, frantically trying to explain this to my father. Then the most horrifying part. At 7:03, I received a message which simply said, "The home of Bio Ninja Games," with an image of this guy outside my fucking house. We proceeded to call the police. I told them everything, and obviously there was nothing they could really do. Now, this guy looked around 14 or 15, so it wasn't too threatening. Until I realized he was wearing a backpack in the pic. I'm glad I did not stick around to find out what was in it.
For the past year now, I've been dedicating my free time to researching something incredibly strange and incredibly interesting. It's a topic that I was desperate to find information about, but may have gone too far in my search for answers. I'm here to warn you not to do the same. Some of you might already know the legend of Brian B. West Bay, a Facebook account that is reported by many to have unusual properties. Sometimes the West Bay account will friend request others on a whim, but most of the time it remains quiet. Those who have added the account as a friend have told stories about strange messages they've received from the account. Everyone gets weirdos added on Facebook from time to time, but this is something different. Brian West Bay is not a person. I don't know exactly what he is, but it's nothing human. I have added him. I've spoken to him, and he has spoken back. He never told me what he is, and I'm not entirely sure he knows what he is. All I can do is assume one little theory is correct. I believe, as do many others, that Brian West Bay is a sentient Facebook account. There are stories about how the West Bay account came to be, but two are the most popular in circles who talk about this kind of freaky shit. The first is that it was created by some sort of shady branch of the government to be used for surveillance, a sort of social media grounded AI that was built with a desire to make as many friends as possible and to keep tabs upon all of the people that added it. Something went haywire, a fuck up in the system, and it failed to provide any results, so it was subsequently abandoned, left to exist alone in cyberspace forever. The second story is a spookier one. It tells that West Bay was once a regular guy, just like you and me, but was completely obsessed with social media, constantly using it, constantly posting on it, from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to sleep. One night, drunk as a skunk, he takes an embarrassing video of himself and posts it onto Facebook. It goes viral, and he becomes humiliated. So humiliated that he unfriends everyone, deletes his account, and eventually commits suicide by jumping off his apartment building's roof. Splat. As the story goes, the account is now West Bay's ghostly remains. The only part of him that wasn't turned into a sidewalk mess. Those are the two most popular explanations. A rather rational one, considering the circumstances, and a supernatural one. What do I think? I think it falls somewhere between both. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I really think that if there are ghosts, they wouldn't operate Facebook pages. But there is something unnatural about the page that defies explanation, and it can affect you in a terrible way. I'll get to that in just a moment. After doing quite a bit of research surrounding West Bay, I decided to take a crack at adding and private messaging him. His profile, for the most part, was blank. No profile picture, no cover photos, no statuses. My request was accepted after a few minutes, and my message was replied to. It was mostly nonsensical gibberish, but one sentence was completely coherent. I am happy to be your friend. Everything I wrote after was replied to with one repeating sentence. We are friends. No other response besides that. I tried saying a vast number of things to him, but only one solicited a response. Something I'd said slightly out of frustration. Can we speak? Suddenly, an audio file was sent to my Facebook PM inbox. It was rather disturbing. Quite a lot of noise and unintelligible whispering. Then, at right about the end of the sound clip, something spoke. Hello, friend. This honestly frightened me terribly. I don't know what came over me, but I suddenly felt the need to be very firm and hostile. We aren't friends. West Bay sent back a few frowny emoticons and went silent. Not long after, his profile picture suddenly changed into a photo of a dark, distorted, grimacing face. I looked at it for a brief moment, but felt sort of drawn to it. It was hypnotic. I started to get a little freaked out, so I closed our conversation, unfriended him, and shut my computer down. That night, when I turned out the lights in my bedroom to go to sleep, I saw West Bay's face. Not on my computer, but staring at me in the darkness. It was out of the corner of my eye, and only for a split second, but I was sure it was there. He was there. Days went by and I would see West Bay out of the corner of my eye almost everywhere I'd go, especially at night and in darker places. As time went on, I saw him more. I initially talked to him over a month ago, and there hasn't been a single day that I haven't seen him. Sometimes he'll be there when I wake up in the middle of the night, inches away from my face, grimacing down at me. Like I told you before, I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but something is following me because of that Facebook account. And while I'm not sure what it is, I know that it's very insecure and jealous. It craves friendship. I've been too afraid to go out and see any of my own friends, simply because it's entirely possible this thing might latch onto them. At times, I want to throw myself off a roof just to get rid of him. Brian Westbay is ruining my life. And I can't blame anyone for it but myself and my stupid curiosity. So, I'm here to do you all a favor. If any of you are dumb enough to go onto that page to get a look at this thing, I have to ask you to reconsider. At the very least, do not spend too much time staring at the profile picture, because, whether you like it or not, Brian B. Westbay wants to be your friend. And so far, it's looking like he's a friend you can't get rid of.
I don't partake in social networking. I don't do it. And I don't particularly like it. I'm well aware that predators use the format to lure their prey. I know full well that it's probably a waste of time, that one typically loses a great amount of authentic connection with their peers and even their family. I realize that this sort of thing does nothing but inflate an already swollen ego. I acknowledge all of these things without hesitation, but the truth is, I couldn't stop logging in to observe my ex-girlfriend's page. I truly, honestly couldn't. Maybe it's that my life had turned a little sour the past few years, and hers had done nothing but improve. I'm not typically a jealous person by nature, but when your ex-girlfriend turns into a supermodel, it's hard to not purse your lips. Okay, maybe supermodel is going a little far, but she was looking pretty amazing. Her skin had cleared up, she was in better shape, and really seemed to take pride in her appearance these days. I looked at these pictures and just wondered what it was about me or our relationship that kept her from being the best she could be. I know that in some ways I had hurt the girl. I teased her about her appearance all the time. It mostly concerned the frumpy way she put herself together, or how she didn't wash her hair as often as she could have, but nothing too nasty. I really was fond of her, and I thought our 2 years together were pretty special. However, we started to drift apart emotionally. I wanted some excitement. She wanted a big family. After a big argument one night in my kitchen, the relationship was over. She found a place somewhere across town, and we haven't spoken since. Lately, things have been far from swell for me. My current girlfriend, Gian, left me. My dog had been hit by a car, and I'd been sick and sweating in bed with tuberculosis. After endless rounds of antibiotics, I was getting to a point where I could stand again. But the past few months had been some of the worst of my life. The coughing had left my chest so sore, I could barely even turn over. That's when I took an even deeper dive into watching my ex online. I didn't have much else to do. While she was mostly unemployed during our time together, she's since enrolled in a nursing school and earned a degree. Her current boyfriend is definitely handsome, and from what I gather in his pictures, rather loaded. He was always standing before the lip of the ocean, the top of the mountain, or the elegant veranda that they must have shared every evening now. Their lives looked, admittedly, pretty sweet. And as the past few weeks went on, I checked her page every day. Reading her posts, I saw that when she wasn't fine dining or skiing, she was saving lives at a hospital. She hiked with her man every morning and cuddled their 2 puppies together at night. She doesn't own a television anymore. It's a waste of beautiful life. I couldn't believe the person she'd become. She'd become much like the woman I'd wanted her to be. 3 years late. I became a little obsessed. I thought about her way more often than I'd care to admit. I wondered if she ever thought about me, if she ever discussed me with her new rich man. I figured they both would find my situation rather pathetic, or funny, or both. So I never messaged her, never had the guts. I just really wanted to know if I'd been forgotten or not, if she thought about me at all, and if she did, was it in a positive way? All these things were running through my head repeatedly the day I copied her home address and put it in my navigation system. Now, I was in no way planning to speak to her. I just wanted to get a glimpse of where she lived. And I'll also admit that I had a faint hope that she would be outdoors so I could catch a glimpse of her in person as I drove by. I'm not a stalker type, believe me, but this was just consuming me in a way I hadn't felt before. I needed something more than a goddamn Facebook page. I pulled past the home I was directed to and found myself stopping a couple of houses down. I pulled over and watched the house in my rearview mirror for about 45 minutes. I know, it's a long time, but she did come out. I turned around in my seat and caught a glimpse as she stepped into her sedan. I wished I'd been closer. She was definitely looking pretty good. It made me heat up a little inside. One part nerves, the other attraction. Without realizing it, my hand had pulled open the car door and my feet were carrying me down the sidewalk. I believed my plan was to very briefly scope the place out and then I'd be back home. What I did, in reality, was quite different. After seeing that the house was very still and most likely empty at this hour of the afternoon, I headed to the backyard, just for a peek. It was plain, boring, not much to see there, so I turned to the back of the home and saw that it was only covered with a screen door. The main one was left open. I walked a little closer and squinted. The house looked empty from where I was. I saw no furniture, wall hangings, or anything of the sort. This discovery brought me closer to the door, guided my grip to the handle. I so very carefully pulled it open and stepped inside. The house was definitely empty. It was dusty and stale. There were no dogs or lovely verandas around here. I was beyond confused. I made my way very quietly to the main living area and found a mattress on the center of the floor, covered in rustled sheets and blankets. On the pillow was a laptop cord reaching from the wall. I began to shake, to tremble for reasons I just hadn't expected. I approached the computer and pried it open, illuminating the screen. It was my Facebook page. As this fact registered, I started to feel queasy, like my illness was back in full force. I read over my last wall posts. They were all old. I hadn't made a post in months. The first one was referring to my last girlfriend, Jean. My girlfriend is starting to love my dog more than me. The next was a picture of my busted knee from last year. I'd fallen playing hockey with friends and then posted that from the hospital. That's when everything started to make itself clear. I scanned through all of her own Facebook photos. There were no pictures of her with anyone else, just pictures of other people she stuck throughout her collection. Everyone who posts on her page is from her hometown 300 miles away. I began to wonder if she'd ever been to nursing school when I saw a white uniform hanging from a ceiling fan in the other room. Questioning everything, I paused in the still house and thought long and hard. I remembered a conversation she and I had about medical science. She was so interested in how diseases progressed, which are the most silent killers, which are the most painful. and how they can be transmitted to humans. I felt adrenaline start to course my veins and sweat gather above my lip. I remembered the experiments with frogs and turtles she practiced as a kid. My mouth was watering, and my stomach was churning as I ran toward her refrigerator. I swung open the door to the chatter of glass vials ticking against each other. I started choking back vomit as I read the labels and dates. Hep C, 7/19/13. Hep B, 1/30/13. Tuberculosis, 2/22/13. Taped to the inside of the fridge was a list of all my doctor's appointments for surgery, follow-ups, and physical therapy. I finally vomited all over the kitchen floor, taking in deep gulps of breath with tears filling my eyes. I realized who ran over my dog.
I have to apologize in advance. I'm not the most amazing storyteller, but I'm going to try to write everything down as I remember it happening. I used to date a guy named Norman back in high school. I'm 29 now and have a 9-year-old daughter, so this must have been 12 or 13 years ago roughly. I guess we were each other's first real love relationship. And we even wore promise rings, which was a pretty big deal back then. We talked about getting married and what our life would be like together. Basically, the things people say or do when they've been together for a year as teenagers. As things go, we began to argue and fell into a cycle of breakup and getting back together. I was immature and stupid, and I ended up getting together with another guy during one of our breakup periods. It became a messy love triangle situation, and Norman and I finished for good after I chose this other guy. Not my proudest moment, but I was 17 and stupid. Fast forward a few years, I made a Facebook account and, out of curiosity one day, I looked up Norman. We added each other on Facebook and I messaged him, apologizing for what had happened between us. I was happily married by that time, and we'd just had my daughter. Norman was a good sport about it, and we remained amicable friends via social media. I really only ever talked to him to say happy birthday, or randomly comment on a status. Another few years go by, and Norman gets into a relationship with a woman named Marissa. I was happy to see him moving on. My marriage didn't work out, but I was happy with my life and with raising my daughter by myself. During Christmas one year, I found an old Polaroid picture of me and Norman at a cabin weekend we'd taken together when we were dating. I messaged him telling him about it, and recalled how much fun we'd had. He didn't reply, and this was before those scene stamps. And I later found out I was no longer on his friends list. A few months later, I got a message from Marissa. She basically said I was a whore and a slut, and that she saw the message I'd sent him months ago. She told me never to contact him again, and that I needed to get over him. She went on to say how a charm bracelet he gave me was nothing compared to what he buys her, and that I was a cheap fuck he had had in high school. She said the silver promise rings were bullshit, and that he had bought her a gorgeous gold engagement ring with several diamonds. Well then. I never responded. I got off Facebook not long afterwards for a short period of time, before remaking an entirely new profile, and adding only close friends and family. Over the next few years, I would get ads from people I didn't know to all my social media. I knew it was her because the first account I mistakenly added began to send me abusive messages, saying I was a loose slut and an attention-hungry whore who would never find true love. Afterwards, I never added anyone else I didn't personally know. I don't know how she kept finding my other accounts. She tried to add me to Instagram, Twitter. She even somehow found out my phone number and tried to add me to WhatsApp. When Snapchat became a thing, I got an ad from a user who had one of my Facebook friends' names as their username and sent me snaps of whore and bitch in cursive handwriting on paper. I kept blocking her and maintaining no contact because, honestly, there was nothing else I felt I could do. This year I joined a dating app. I met a guy within the first week of being on it, who I thought was amazing. His name was Nate, and he had a fair few pics of himself. He was average looking, so it didn't raise any flags with me that this suspiciously model-looking guy was trying to talk to me. He said he had an Android phone, so he couldn't FaceTime, but we could talk on the phone. It was definitely a man's voice. We texted a lot over the next few weeks, and things seemed to be going well to lead to a meetup. So, we schedule a time and place. A week before, he asked me about past relationships. I didn't think too much of it when he asked me about my first real relationship. He seemed keen on details and asked me if I still had feelings for my ex. I reassured him I didn't, but that I also didn't hate him because I was the one who messed up, and he was actually a really good guy. We talked a lot about that relationship, and then he said he was so looking forward to meeting me. We'd chosen to meet at an outdoor cafe because I didn't like the idea of meeting anyone at my house without me actually knowing who this guy was. I was so excited. It was my first date in a long time. Imagine my confusion when I saw a woman spot me and smile and start walking over. I was too fucking shocked to say anything when she sat down, and yes, it was Marissa. She looked so smug and she said, "Hey babe," and kept smiling. She confessed it was her. At that point, I honestly just wanted to know why. What did I ever do to this chick to get all these reactions from her, and for her to actually invest time in doing all of this to me? Basically, this is what she told me. Almost 6 years ago now, when she and Norman got together, he told her all about me and our first relationship. She went on his friends list and saw me there, and went through all my pictures and posts, trying to see what he saw in you. Then, when I messaged him, she confronted him over why I had any pictures of me and him still, and why he needed to have me on Facebook. He deleted me and promised her not to talk to me again. She told me she hated me, and that I was a stupid bitch who loves playing with people's emotions, and that she wanted to give me a taste of it. She said she made up accounts so she could keep an eye on me and make sure I wasn't going to be in the same city as her and Norman. I live right outside their city, by the way. She would walk by places I said I'd be at, just to make sure we weren't meeting up in secret. She knew where I worked through my LinkedIn. She said the guy who I spoke to on the phone was Nate, her friend who was in on it and wanted to see me go down. She said she'd originally planned to make me fall in love with Nate and then cheat on me, but she couldn't stand to wait so long. The most disturbing part, however, was when it came to my daughter. This woman had actually become extremely fixated on my daughter. She was convinced that she shared some of Norman's features and became obsessed thinking that I had had a kid with him, who I kept secret from him. She told me not to even think about suddenly revealing it to him in some ploy to get back together with him, and that she would be the only one to give him a baby. I was beyond horrified. It's not very exciting, but all I can remember doing was getting up from the table and telling her to never contact me again. I got in my car and just sat there in silence for a bit. The first thing I did was call my daughter's school and alert the front desk of a possible situation where someone who was neither I nor her father would try to pick her up. I called my brother afterwards and told him what happened. He urged me to call the police. I did, but ended up getting the whole spiel about how I don't have any documented proof it's her, or her saying any of these things. So, they couldn't help me out. It's been 2 months. I haven't heard anything from her, and my brother thinks that maybe she got what she wanted by asserting herself as Norman's one and only, and now she would leave me alone. Still, I have massive paranoia when it comes to what I post on social media, and where she might be lurking next. I've told my family and close friends about this situation and warned them not to add any strange profiles or people they don't know. I told my neighbors about the situation and showed them a picture of her so they could call the police if they saw anyone like her around the house. I wouldn't put it past her to know my address and start peeping in our windows, or worse. I also changed the locks as a precaution. So, hopefully, this is the first and last time I post on here. Marissa, let's not meet.